Hi everyone, in today's video I want to share a project of mine, a hardware boot selection switch which I built using TinyUSB on Pico. Before talking about the device, let's first understand what problem I was facing. I had a dual boot system with Windows and Ubuntu installed, as you can see on the right side. And every time I wanted to switch from Ubuntu to Windows to play games after getting tired of coding, I had to reboot the system and wait for the grub menu to show up and then selecting the Windows. Easy, right? Nope. Let me explain my problem. After rebooting the system, I used to get distracted on Insta or YouTube in my phone and usually miss the grub menu window, which happens to appear for a limited period of 30 seconds. But before I could realize, I was already logged into Ubuntu, which meant restarting the system again. This usually happened twice every time, and honestly, I had already adapted to this habit of mine. But one day, when I was wandering Hackaday for cool project ideas, I came across this article, a hardware boot selection switch. After going through it, I realized I was not the only one who was frustrated with this timing window. Unlike me, the author Stefan found a clear approach to solve the problem. As you know, the menu that appears after restarting on a dual boot system is a grub menu. Grub in itself is a very small utility and doesn't support huge functionality other than loading OS of choice. But grub menu can check disk and read the file contents. Well, Stefan leveraged this feature of grub to build a device. He configured STM32 to a mass storage device in which he kept one file which would contain toggle switch position. Using a script which grub loads when it runs post boot up, the script first finds the mass storage device and then reads the file and select the OS based on the value. Genius and so cool. And I decided to use my Raspberry Pi Pico and tiny USB leaf to achieve the same. And here is the workflow of the system. After powering up the PC, here the dual boot system, the Pico gets powered up as well. I have configured it to act as a mass storage device using tiny USB. Please check out previous video in this series to understand how to achieve it. Here I have initialized one file named switch.cfg in the FAT12 file system and the content as shown in the example below. You may wonder why such format is used for the file content. This format is chosen so that we can directly use OS hardware switch variable when we load the switch.cfg in our grub script. This line creates a new variable with the specific name and value once loaded inside a script. Next, in PC, when the grub menu starts, it loads a custom script which checks for a disk with UID 00123, which happens to be none other than our Raspberry Pi mass disk. This value is taken from the serial ID field of our FAT12 file system. The script then loads the disk and reads the switch.cfg file. Here we are sourcing the switch.cfg file which will create a variable name OS hardware switch initialized with switch position. When the file was read by the grub, in our Pico, read callback function was called. Here we check if host is asking to read switch file by comparing the LBA to file location address. If yes, we read the GPIO switch value and save it to a variable value in place and then send the buffer back to the OS. Now that the OS, that is the grub script, knows the switch position value, we map it to the OS of our choice. If it is 0, load default, that is Ubuntu, else if the value is 1, load option 2, which is Windows. Now the selection sits on the selected option, grub loads the OS. So here is my system. This is my laptop having dual boot system. This has Windows 11 and Ubuntu installed as a dual boot configuration, and I have my device and the small device connected via USB to the laptop. And let's boot up the system and see. Right now the toggle position is at Linux, so the default selection should be on Linux. So let's turn it off. It's not mounted. After some now it got mounted. Let's see. You can see, right? How can I pause? This is Ubuntu. This is the first selection, Ubuntu, and now it got booted to Ubuntu. So these are some checks. Yeah, Ubuntu. Now what we'll do is, now we'll reboot the system. Restart the system again. This time we will toggle it to Windows. And you can see, right, the option automatically got selected to Windows. Now the Windows should boot up. Yeah, Windows. Cool. I want to show you the close-up. Now the switch is at Windows. If I power on the system, I have powered up. This is still mounted. Not mounted. It got mounted. Now the selection is Windows. See, right? In this video, we saw an example where mass storage device was used to solve a real life problem. We saw how the boot selection switch was implemented. We also modified the grub in runtime to load OS of our choice. For detailed step, you can check out my Hexter.io article which I have pinned in the description below, as well as the source code repo. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, please feel free to like, share and subscribe the channel, and see you in the next one.